All I'm saying is just underscores. Like I can't count them, you know, because when you got
It's not that many underscores.
it's like, is it?
It's just 2 underscores. J, 2 underscores, because J underscore was already taken. J underscore underscore Murphy underscore underscore.
That's 4.
I understand that, but you were putting, like, when you were making fun of me, you were putting a bunch in between the J and the Murphy. There's just 2.
It looks like a straight line because you can count letters.
Okay, all underscores look like a straight line. It's just how long is the line?
It's just ever since
Whatever.
I try to look you up on Instagram to tag you and stuff, and I'm like, Jay, is it underscore underscore underscore?
Well, you could use Instagram or whatever you're trying to tag me in, like a fucking person who knows how to use technology, and just type my name in, and it'll pull me.
Anyways, guys, if you want to follow John Murphy on MySpace,
Oh
it's
my
J
God.
underscore Murphy underscore the real comedian comic official
It's just J Murphy.
underscore.
It's just J Murphy. You know what? I'm gonna change it. After this. I'm gonna change it to Travis is a fucking bitch.
I bet that's
Underscore
probably taken.
underscore.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Opening the Mic. It's a weekly podcast with 2 aspiring comedians. We're going to take you with us on our journey from open micers to hopefully real deal official comedians. I'm Travis Stevenson.
And I'm John Murphy, and we thought the world needed another podcast, especially one by 2 middle-aged white dudes, you know?
Talking about themselves, you know?
That's, yeah, there's not enough of those. We need to feel like the market wasn't saturated enough. So anyway, last episode, we talked a lot about ourselves, like who we are, where we came from,
what we wanted to do with this podcast.
Yeah, where the podcast was going. So before everybody starts taking us too terribly seriously, I think we need to point out how very new at this whole thing we are. Talk a little bit about maybe our local scene and where we're at now versus what we'd like to do at some point. So,
well, it's been an eventful 2 months. So I took a class. It was a 2-month long class, and I didn't go up until like week 3 of that class. So
Right.
I officially I've been on stage for 2 months as of a couple days ago. And I've done a bunch of open mics. I've done a couple improv shows that they've had there. I've opened for a couple touring comedians, and I got to be the feature spot in one too. So that was kind of cool. I think it's more or less they just needed people, not like I was qualified to do it.
yeah.
And I think we've written.
You're like, I just totally agree
Yeah,
with
you
you.
know, I mean, you're
Yeah,
not
no,
wrong.
it's not that you're good. It's,
So like I think I've written like 20 shitty minutes.
right.
I might have like a tight 3, but I've got like
I think you've got a super tight 10. I think, just based off of trying to remember everything you've done. I think you've got a super tight 10. I think you've got a tight 15 and a real loose 20.
yeah,
That's how I would do it.
lose 20. That was
And
my
that's-
nickname in high school. So
I think,
what is your situation like? Because we've done about the same amount of shows. No,
you've done a lot more than me.
That's
at
right,
this
because
point.
I got
Because
asked
you
to
did
do
those
a weekend.
features and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Which, by the way, I know we're going to hear it already, but before we even hear it, I know that that's not how it normally goes. Normally, 2 months into doing stand-up, you're not getting feature spots.
You're still trying to suck the club owner's dick just to be
to
like,
let you use the bathroom
Yeah.
so that you can walk by someone who does comedy. Like, I get that. I know. But
So we got really lucky with our local scene.
it's the scene. That's
Yeah.
100% what it is. My situation is similar to yours. I didn't take the class that you took, and I went up and did an open mic. I think the second time you went up was my first time. You've done some of those feature spots and shit that I haven't got to do yet. But total stage time, what do you think your total stage time is right now?
Well, it went up a lot because I did 4 shows that weekend the last time I was up. So before that, it might have
Right.
been 40 minutes on stage because it's 5 each time. And then now I've probably been on stage over an hour at least.
Yeah, I'd say you've got. I think I'm still at half hour. I think I've got 30 minutes or less actual stage time because it's 5-minute spots. I've only done 5s. You've done some extra time too. You've got to do a 10-minute and a couple of like 10 to 15s, right?
Yeah, there was this one late show that I got, I was supposed to do 8. And I was like, hey man, if it's a late show, it's the last show. Like if I want to do this bit and this bit, but that's going to put me over by like
Right.
a minute. And then I go up there and I started just feeling myself, might have been a little tipsy, started talking with the crowd, and I recorded it. When I got off, I was like, fuck, that was 13 minutes. I was like, whoops.
Did he say anything to you?
Nope.
You're totally cool with it? Well, then you're fine.
Yeah.
I think
I
next
didn't want
time
to be
do 14.
disrespectful. I was
Yeah.
like, I want it, because like that's something that in a lot of clubs that when they tell you to do 8, they want 8. They don't want you to go 6. They don't want you to go 9.
Yeah.
They want it to be 8 because they've got everything running on a schedule from like what they've build the show as to what people are expecting, and they don't want the show to end early and they don't want it to run long either.
Right.
So it's very professional if you can do the time you're asked to do.
Yeah.
So that's why when they told me to do 8, I was like, okay, I got to hit 8. I was like, fuck, I was in this weird spot though, where it's like, it's going to be about 7 unless I like slow it down, take some time. Or if I add in another bit in my head, I'm like, I know this is going to be 9 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But then I just really started feeling myself
Well,
talking to the audience.
I
Whatever.
mean, they were laughing, right? I
Yeah.
didn't get to go to that show, but it sounded like it went well from what everybody said. So
Ton of fun. So we got pretty lucky with our local club scene. Basically,
yeah.
we have a comedian from Boston. He did the whole Boston circuit, did a bunch of, touring up and around there. And him and his wife basically sold everything, bought an RV, and they were going to just start traveling the country doing comedy. COVID hits. They're visiting her family who lives in the small town we do.
right.
Kind of get stuck here. And he's like, well, shit, while we're here, might as
Just
well open a comedy
up a
club.
comedy, which sounds like a terrible business plan, but I'm so glad he did it. So you just go into a random town that you get stranded in. It's like, you know what? We'll just open a club here randomly. I mean, I'm sure there was more thought that went into it, but that's basically how he describes it. I'm so glad he did, though, because I don't think without him doing that, either of us would be on stage right now.
No, and he does it well, too, because he's done so many open mics and been to so many clubs.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what to expect. So it's set up really nice. The aesthetic of the club is cool. The shows that they put on are really cool. And
Everyone I've talked to that comes through there that does the open mic scene or does the tour, it goes to different clubs or whatever, every single one of them was like, you guys have it so lucky here. Like, it's ran well, it's ran by a comic so that they know like the shitty parts about it and the good parts about it. So everyone I've talked to that's like does it other places in the state or whatever, even if they're still semi-local, they're like, this is definitely the best ran one of these things.
and
So-
we've got another comedy club coming in as well.
Yep.
It's like they're having to make it like a restaurant because we live on the Virginia-Tennessee border. So with liquor laws, to get their license, they had to be a restaurant. So
yeah.
it's we
Which
haven't
the food
done
looks good as
it.
shit.
It looks cool. It
Did
doesn't
you see the
feel
Did you see
like
their chicken and waffles?
Yeah, it looked good.
It's red velvet waffles. What the fuck?
I'm a chicken and waffle fan.
Anyway,
He
we haven't been there yet.
no, you're gonna be doing it Thursday.
Yep, I'm gonna be doing it. What is today? Yeah, like the day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We'll report back to you.
yeah. I don't know. Just all I literally know about. I've never stepped foot in the building. All I know is based on Instagram pictures or whatever. It's definitely a much bigger room, as far as not bigger as in like a higher ranking, but bigger as in square
Just
footage.
space, yeah.
It definitely from pictures looks massive, which is a little unnerving. So
But it's awesome that we went from like basically you'd have to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to a place to do comedy to now
two clubs within
2 clubs within walking distance.
Yeah, they're literally a couple hundred yards
And it
apart.
was really crazy because I travel for work. Like I drive all over, up and down, like, the state and East
Uh-huh.
Coast a little bit. So I've looked in like, DC and Richmond and, a lot of those bigger cities on the coast there in that area and like Baltimore. And they've got a ton of comedy clubs. But if you're trying to find just an open mic, it's usually like a brewery or
Right.
some restaurant.
Not a comedy club.
No.
That's the
comedy
other thing I
clubs,
think
like,
we're super lucky about is the
Yeah.
fact that our comedy club is that.
Yeah.
It's a dedicated comedy club. So it's not like you're going to have to compete with some guy playing his acoustic guitar or whatever.
Right.
Like I think that's a huge deal that we're
'Cause
lucky
I've-
for and don't even realize
I've
that.
wanted to, as I'm traveling, like just go out and hit one of these things, but I chicken out because it's like, come to Bob's Pizzeria and try to make people laugh as they're eating their fucking, their deep dish. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I can make. I don't know. I feel like I'm out of my comfort zone if I'm following a dude doing like snap slam poetry or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I've got to get up and try to tell dick jokes.
Well, I mean, also a lot of it comes from the crowd knowing what they're there for.
Yeah.
Like that's the
It's like I
biggest
came
thing.
for pizza and beer. I didn't come for like this dude to try to work on his
Right.
act.
Everyone who's sitting in a crowd at a comedy club is there to laugh at least. So they're at least open to the idea of laughter, as opposed to if half of the people that came are there to watch their buddy do slam poetry or watch this guy do a song or watch somebody juggle chainsaws or what the fuck ever they're getting involved in. If the people there are strictly focused on comedy, it's going to be a warmer room just by nature, which helps a ton, I think, because if you're trying to make people laugh who aren't even there to laugh, it's even harder, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Never done it. I mean,
I've-
we're still
I've tried to get on the
babies.
open mics at these comedy clubs, and it's like, oh, it's an open mic. That means it's open. You get to come up and do it. Like, no, we need a 10-minute video
Yeah.
of your material. We need recommendations.
Mhm.
We need a headshot.
Yeah.
And, we need to see your, like, STD vaccinations or whatever.
Yeah.
We
That's
need a
not,
clean AIDS test.
thought we were open here.
Yeah.
That's literally how our open mic works, which obviously we're not a comedy town. We're not New York or LA or any of that shit. So our open mic is legit an open mic. Anybody
can
walks
come
in
do
the
it.
door, there's a notebook sitting on a desk, and you just walk up and write your name down, and he'll announce it, and you go tell jokes.
Dude, and sometimes
it.
that'll bite you in the ass,
Yeah,
too.
buddy. Yeah, we've got some horror stories. Well, that's going to have to be a whole episode. Is just where we talk about. Even in the short 2 months we've been there, we have seen some shit, boy.
Shit.
Oh my god!
Because it's like a real warm room. Like, you can go up there and be ass, like not say a funny thing, but as long as you're happy to be there, people will laugh.
Yeah, and
Which
that's another cool thing he does. Which I mean, it sounds like I don't know. It sounds almost like cheating or hacky, or I don't know what to call it. I don't know what the word is for it, but it seems almost unfair because he walks up and before anybody does any jokes, he does his little bit. And he's like, "Hey, everybody's working on new material here. Some of these people might be up for the first time. Some people might be something brand new they're trying out. So be more generous with your laughs than you normally would." And he just primes the audience to like, "Hey, laugh no matter what." Which could, I guess, be a bad thing because you don't really know some of your material if it's as good as you think it is. But it is so helpful starting out and being like shitting razor blades scared, like shaking your ass off, and then going up there and knowing that they're going to at least laugh if it's remotely funny.
It also, to me, feels like because we live in an area where people are like, what's raised right, so I'm going to have to be nice.
Got to be polite.
As opposed to being up in like Boston where like, fuck you, make me laugh.
Yeah.
Bitch.
Dance, monkey. If you're not hilarious, they're not going to give it to you. Which also makes a better comic, I bet, at the end. Like, I bet you the people who come out of that scene are going to be funnier than the people who come out of something like what we're in.
So speaking of that, like, do you want to, like, is that, what is your goal? Like, where do you want to take this? Because, I mean, we've not even really talked about it because it's been like, we just started. Yeah. We're in the middle of it. I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing.
Like, our goal to begin with was do it.
Yeah.
Now we've done it. So I get what you're saying. I guess there's two answers to that. Are you asking realistically what I think could happen? Or are you asking like pie in the sky dream type shit?
Let's do both. Let's lead off with the pie in the sky.
I mean, obviously everybody's thinking the same thing all the time. I want to be doing arenas. And, I mean, of course, that's honestly, you're probably not going to believe this because I don't think I've ever talked to you about this. As tight as we are, I bet I've never said this to you. Honestly, you
just want to do cruise ships? Me too, brother. Something about being able to get all the ice cream you want at any time.
Not after our death cruise for Christmas that one year. It was a fucking disaster. No, I would love to, believe it or not, just get popular enough to like get on a sitcom or a movie. I'd really like to try acting. Like,
oh, wow. Yeah. No one's ever thought about that before.
No, I mean, I know a lot of people have, but you probably didn't think I would want to do that because I've never mentioned it before ever. But I think like a runner on a sitcom, just a like the fat, ugly husband who has the super smoking hot wife and does something, that I would love that because like
the Kevin James.
Yeah. Kevin James. That's the dream. I would love to. I think this makes me feel like such a fucking idiot when I talk like this, but I don't think I could do the road forever, I don't know. I don't think, no matter how good you are at comedy, the greatest comedians of all time, it's still a rise and fall of popularity. Like they're going to get huge for a while and make a fortune, and then they kind of die off a little bit. And sometimes they'll make a resurgence and stuff like Chappelle's done right now. But most of the people, they hit their peak and then they kind of wane off, like Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart is a perfect example. He was the biggest comedian ever. Still is probably one of the highest selling comedians of all time. I mean, he was massive. He was renowned in every person's household. Everyone knew the name Kevin Hart for strictly his stand-up. Then he kind of went over to movies and he put out a special that is on Netflix or HBO. I don't know where it's at.
Netflix, probably.
Netflix, somewhere. And I've talked to a bunch of people who still haven't even seen it.
Right. And he doesn't even write his own stuff anymore. It's kind of just like he's
so,
doing it just to still claim he's a comedian, but yeah.
I think if you're going to do stand-up, it's not going to be as sustainable as it would be if you used your stand-up to get into another lane.
I don't know, because you look at certain people like, the Carlins of the world, died in a hotel because it's like, he just did it forever.
Yeah.
Or like Lewis Black's inspiring because that dude didn't start until he was like deep into his 40s or early 50s.
Which makes me think we still got a chance.
So what's the realistic goal? Like, what do you think? Like, this is something that's achievable.
I would like to make money doing stand-up. Like, as broad as that is, like, I'm not talking like $10 at the door. I would like to do it as a career. That's my realistic. Like if I can make enough money to support myself telling jokes, I think that's a very high expectation, but realistic. Like I don't think I'm ever going to be the biggest comedian in the world. I'm not funny enough. I'm not good enough, and I don't have enough dedication. I'm far too fucking lazy to be that guy. But if I could be just good enough that I could tour the country and get booked by people, I want people to seek me as opposed to me asking for stage time, them asking me to come. And, family-wise situation, no kids, so I'd be free to tour as much as I wanted. So I would just like to be able to go across the country and tell jokes to people. That's basically it. What about you?
I mean, like, this is going
to start big. What's your big pie
This
in
is
the
going to
sky?
sound like, because my pie in the sky is not very far off from, like, what I actually think that I can achieve. Because it's like, and this is going to sound so douchey, like, oh, it's about the art, and it's about this, and it's about that.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's like, because I've always enjoyed creating stuff. Anytime I get to do, like, music or fucking building something or
Right.
making videos, like, I just enjoy the idea of, like, taking something out of your head and making it real. To me, that's like magic. It's the coolest thing in the world. So, like, with comedy, it's like, I like making people laugh. But, like, right now, we're in that weird spot where, like, I can't call myself a comedian.
Right.
So the pie in the sky would be like, I'm known as a comedian. That's what I could, like, put in my fucking Twitter bio, It's like comic.
Yeah.
Not aspiring comic, not wannabe comic. No, like comic, and the people go, yeah, that's right. That's what I want.
I get that.
Whether that means that I do, like, a feature spot at Zany's in Nashville, and that's the highest I ever get to go. But
Yeah.
people are like, yeah, he's a comic. He's a pretty funny comedian.
Yeah.
Not like world class, but he's pretty fun.
Right.
As long as it's like, because right now I'm getting off the stage and people are laughing, and I've got people coming up and telling me that I'm funny, but I haven't had any, like, and this is, this is like a chip on my shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
dude.
Yeah. I've only heard you say this every day
100 times.
for like months.
I haven't had any comedians or comics come up and be like, what you said was funny. They might be like, what you did was, you did good.
Good set.
Good set, you did good. But they're like, oh, I think you're funny.
Yeah.
Never fucking once. And it bothers me so much because I'm like, I don't want to be the funny uncle at a barbecue.
Right.
I want to be like a comedian, like, who writes jokes. People are like, oh, fuck, I wish I would have thought of that.
It's the difference in, like, if you're like building a house, there's a difference in someone being like, hey, good job on putting that wall up versus that's a beautiful house.
Yeah.
Like, tell me my creation is good. Don't just tell me I
Did
performed
good.
correctly.
Yeah, I did good. Oh, you
Yeah.
did a good job.
Yeah, it's like checking off a box. Like, yes, you walked on stage, you told your jokes, your timing was fine, people laughed, good job. It's like, yeah, but did you think I was funny?
Yeah, the same thing
need
used to
that
happen
shit.
whenever I was in a band. I'd, like, get off the stage and people are like, you did a good job up there. You guys did good. I'm like, but do you like our music? No. I mean, it's just not,
It's not for
my
me.
It's not for me. And I'm like, well, I don't fucking care if you thought that I performed my music
Yeah,
that you
I
don't
didn't hit
like
any
well.
sour notes, but that's
Yeah.
not what I'm looking
No,
for.
I want to make a song that you like. And it's
Right.
like, if the goal of comedian is to be funny, I want people to think I'm funny.
Yeah.
And that's it. Because that's the only reason you would do it. It's like, I'm not doing it to get fame or money, because, like, I know the odds on that. And that's long.
It's zero.
I
Yeah.
just want to make people laugh and to not have to be embarrassed about it.
I think, I get what you're saying, but I think you're going to have to set, like I'm telling you what your goals need to be. I think you got to set something concrete, because that's just too abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, when will
Oh,
you
no,
know
that's my pie in the sky. Is I want to be respected by comedians and people call me a comic. That's the pie in the sky.
Okay.
My actual realistic goal of what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to travel around and be able to get on at clubs.
So basically
like,
what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even if it's not, like, getting paid for it, like, that's the shitty part about it. Like, my realistic goal is, like, I want to be able to show up in places and be like, oh, we saw your 10-minute set and your headshot. You can come to our open mic. I'm like, cool.
Well, I mean, you'll hit that goal within this year probably.
Maybe not. We don't know. I mean,
Yeah, but you got to set it a little higher. You be better. Be better. You could be better than that.
or, like, what is kind of cool is, like, and, like, I hope the guy who owns the club never listens to this, Sean, if you're out there, because it's like,
Hey, Sean.
it's because, like, he's got all these traveling comedians that come through, right?
Yeah.
And it'd be fucking cool. It'd be so cool. This is like that dream, where you're fucking at a concert and they ask you to come up on stage or whatever.
Yeah.
Or somebody sees you singing karaoke and they're like,
Uh-huh.
oh, hey, you want a fucking record deal?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It's like if one of those traveling comedians came through and was like, hey, who's that guy that you had featured for me? Or they pop into an open mic and they see me and they're like, oh my God. Like, hey, that guy right there. Can I get his information?
Right.
I need an opener who can do, like, a tight 5 for these dates. And I just get brought on. Because that feels realistic.
Yeah. That's
Because
something
it feels
that
like,
could happen.
hey, if some relative no-namer, like an E-list comedian,
Yeah.
is coming through and he needs somebody in the area because his opener got sick or whatever the fuck,
Yeah.
or he can't afford to pay an opener and just
Yeah.
needs a dude who's anxious for stage time, I'm like, I'll be the dude who works for free.
I'll be a guy.
I will work gratis. That's a fancy way of saying free, in case you don't speak French or Latin or whatever that is.
You might have the same thing. I don't know if we've talked about it or not, but I have steps. I have like goal steps. Like the next big thing.
Yeah,
like,
I got a pedometer too, Fitbit. I just throw it in the washing machine and let it go.
Oh, waterproof.
Yeah.
Big spender.
Yeah, I let it just go, and then it's like, hey, you hit your goal, and I'm like, didn't even break a sweat, brother.
Well, I did, but that's because I was watching that cake show and I got real hot and bothered by it. I would love to, like, the next time I celebrate something in comedy, the next time I'm like, it was a big deal to go on stage the first time I did my first open mic.
God, to be hot and bothered. You ever just think about old phrases? I'm hot and bothered. It's like, it's not that you're hot, but you're also upset about it.
Well,
I'm all hot and bothered. And that makes me want to touch myself.
I think that's a different definition of bothered.
Okay,
Like,
have you ever been horny and been like, gosh, I'm annoyed about this? Because when I think you're
that's what I'm
bothering
saying.
me,
I think you're defining bothered as the same way that you think bothered is, but I think in that context, there's a different definition for bothered.
yeah, but it's stupid because words mean what they mean. And bother, like, hey, you're
I
bothering
think
me.
there's alternate definitions for bothered.
Hey, you're bothering me, and it's hot in here. Wanna fuck?
No, I think it's bothered like you know how British sometimes they'll say, I can't be bothered. Oh, I couldn't be bothered. It's not like you can't annoy me. It's like, I don't have time for that. I think there's other definitions, and one of them is dick hard. I think that's what bothered means. It just farted up, Anyway, my next big, to go on stage for the very first time and do an open mic and get laughs and get off stage, people are like, you're really funny. And then you get that whole dick sucking thing where it's like, how many times have you done this? And you're like, oh, it's my first time. I'm like, no way. Which a lot of them are just doing that to be nice, I'm sure. But still, I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I'm built fucking different. My next big celebration is going to be the first time I make money. I don't care if it's $1.
That's what here's the shitty thing too. Because I got asked to do one of those opening spots, like my fourth time up on stage. And Sean just asked me to go up and I don't even know if there was I don't think there was a traveling comedian. I think it was like a showcase of local people.
Yeah.
And he asked me to go up. He said, hey, I'm getting all the comics pizza tonight. And I'm like, I'm a comic?
Yeah.
And I'm getting paid with pizza? Fuck it. That's money.
Well, he calls us all comics on the improv night too. So settle down.
Yeah, but he said comics. I'm getting the comics pizza.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm about to get paid. Here's the problem. Got too nervous. Couldn't eat the fucking pizza.
You feel like you deserved it?
No, I just couldn't get it down. I was so nervous about going up that I was like, there's no way I can eat anything.
So you didn't accept payment. So you're still an unpaid comic.
I'm still an unpaid comic.
Yeah. Even though your first payment was pepperoni.
So I told him, I'm like, dude, next time you need me to go up for somebody and it's not an open mic, just write me a check for $1 so I can say that I'm a semi-professional
Yeah,
comedian.
but that's cheating. That's cheating.
No, it's not. I earned that goddamn dollar.
Well, okay. Next open mic, I'm going to walk up, hand him $1 and be like, can you hand that back to me? Done. Now I'm a paid
Yeah, but
comic.
see, it's an open mic. Not a show where I was on the Instagram post. I would say the bill, but we don't have a bill. It's a Facebook post.
Well, the first time that, I don't care if it's 10% of the door and the door does $10 and I make a literal dollar. The first time that there is money handed to me for telling jokes, that's going to be a
milestone.
Yeah, that's going to be a buy a bottle of whiskey kind of night. That's a hell yeah. I did a thing.
What made you want to do stand up? I don't think we've ever talked about that.
Probably, I would say when I was little. I don't remember. I guess it kind of ties into the very first time I ever heard stand up, and knew that it was a guy just telling jokes. I mean, you hear those old storytellers and stuff when you're real little.
Jerry Clower.
Yeah, stuff like that. I remember those people, but I remember the very first time being old enough to understand that this guy's purpose is to tell jokes.
Yeah,
it's
entertaining with just
it's not a funny TV show or something like that.
Because I remember laughing at Jerry Clower just because he would make funny noises.
Yeah,
no idea what the fuck he was doing or what his purpose was.
Right. And I remember the very first stand-up comedian I ever heard that I knew was a stand-up comedian was Jeff Foxworthy. And I mean, where we grew up, that's huge.
Yeah, he was enormous. We had I remember the cassette. And I remember whenever we were in middle school, you and me both got mad because the dude fucked the joke up.
Yeah. Hey, if you're going to tell the greats, buddy, you're going to learn how to do it. But I remember I made my mom buy me Jeff Foxworthy's Totally Committed. And I can still remember the album cover on the cassette tape was a dude on his knees getting married. I guess it was, isn't there some cultures where you are on your knees in front of the preacher?
I don't know. Maybe.
Anyway, it's a dude on his knees in front of, I think it's Jeff Foxworthy, on his knees, and he's got cowboy boots on, and on the bottom of his boots it says, "Send help." And I will never forget that album cover because I wore 2 of those cassettes out every day on the way to school and way home, because I lived like, half hour from the school.
Mm-hmm.
So every day on the way to school and the way home, all I did was put that shit on repeat constantly. I had every one of his jokes memorized, and I remember talking to my mom about it. I'm like, isn't it crazy that his job is to make people laugh? Like, that's it. That's all he does. I mean, of course he had TV shows and shit later in life, but at that time in like 96, I guess, or
Dude, yeah, and then Kings of Comedy came out, and then Blue Collar Comedy came out.
Yeah.
Which we watched Kings of Comedy, and like it was hilarious, but you can't really go recite Bernie Mac to your teacher at school.
No, you can't. Even though it's funny.
It's hilarious.
And a lot of those jokes went over my head too, because I didn't have like that culture. I didn't have any idea what some of those jokes meant, but the ones that I did get were hilarious.
Dude, those were all the comedians we listened to growing up, because it was like the Kings of Comedy and like how they talked about growing up. And I think it was like, they say it's like a hood thing, but I think it's just like y'all grew up poor. And
it's just a poor thing. Yeah.
We grew up poor as well. So when y'all talk about like
hood and white trash are like the same
neck.
shit. It's identical.
Terrible music. You waste too much money on putting wheels and tires on your car, but just one's a truck and one's a,
Caddy.
Crown Vic.
Yeah. That's stereotypical.
Yeah.
Anyway, the thing that got me into it to begin with was the fact that I was obsessed with Jeff Foxworthy. Thought he was awesome. Everything he said was hilarious to me. I still could probably recite 90% of that.
Exactly make you want to do it? Like, I want to do what he's doing?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I talked to Mom about it, and I was like, that's all he does. And she's like, yeah, he's a comedian. And I'm like, that's crazy. He doesn't have to like go to work Monday. He just goes on stage and tells jokes. And I don't even think I knew that he was doing stage. I thought it was just straight to tape. Like, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember,
did too. Like, imagine him in a recording booth just doing this with Like, I didn't know if they ripped it off of because sometimes you'd listen to a cassette and then you'd see like I was like, is this part of like a movie? Like, did they just rip the cassette off of a movie? Or
the first time I realized that a dude just got paid to say funny stuff, and even at that age, I knew that I was the funny kid. Like, that's, at family reunions and holiday get-togethers and all that stuff, I was the one who held the center of the room. I mean, a bunch of adults, and then there's this 7-year-old kid keeping them rolling on a lot of Jeff Foxworthy stuff. Thanks, Jeff, for making the holidays easy, because I just recited a bunch of his shit. But sometimes I'd go off and do my own thing, and that was when I was like, dude, this would be awesome if this was my thing. But then,
Well, like, I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather, like, because we didn't have TV over there, because they were like old school Depression era fucking old people, like real old.
Yeah.
So like with no cell phones. Well, this is before cell phones, but no cell phone service, no satellite TV. We didn't get that till we were like 10. So there's no TV, barely any electricity. Lucky if you get a radio. So he still had like 8-track tape players and record players. So he was playing like Mom's Mabel.
What's that?
She's a old, real old lady, and she didn't have teeth, and she was a black lady from way back in the 60s, 50s, and she would you could barely understand her, but like as a kid, it's hilarious because she's making all these like just noise like, I don't know, baby, I told you.
And it's called what?
Mom's Mabel.
We need to look that up here after.
Yeah, she's real famous. Well, back for her day, like she was a good joke writer, didn't have teeth, and like it was just a lot of stuff about that. And then Cheech and Chong Records, which I didn't understand anything about weed, but they just made funny voices, and he's a big Braves fan. So there was like this storyteller, sort of like Jerry Clower, but newer. His name was Louis Grizzard, I think his name was. He's actually hilarious. Like, I still sometimes go back and listen to him. But I would listen to these people. And the thing about comedy that I realized is like, and this is going to get deep and philosophical, but
hit me with it.
But like sometimes you'd be around like, we had big families and we were poor. So there was a lot of conflict. Right. And I just noticed like sometimes your parents would be fighting and something stupid would happen. Like somebody would say something wrong. And even though they're both fucking mad at each other, it's impossible to be mad and laugh at the same time.
Yeah.
So something weird would break the tension, and then they'd start laughing. And I was like, oh, that's a superpower. So then, like, if somebody was
laughter fixes things.
Like,
that's cool.
And I was like, if ever mom and dad were fighting, I'm like, all right, let's just do something silly. Let's do something we saw on Def Jam, Def Comedy Jam or something. And I'm going to, like, quote what I remember from, Eddie Murphy. Because we always had comedy on. Always.
So it was almost like a defense mechanism.
100%. And then I remember I didn't use it as a defense mechanism. I just started using it whenever shit got awkward. I hated awkward silences. And I went over to, remember, there's this dude in my neighborhood, Corey.
Yeah.
Corey, and like we went over to his family, which was also dysfunctional, but like, he's like, hey man, you want to come over to my house and like play? And I'm like, sure, which I didn't really do that growing up because we grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
I didn't have neighbors.
Yeah.
And then when we finally moved into like a town, he's like, hey, do you want to come over? It was so alien to me because I was like 12 at this point. So like, never had sleepovers or friends or, so it's just like, well, this is awkward. And I get over there and then like they ask me if I want to stay for dinner. And I'm like, I don't know if I can. Like, I didn't know the rules or etiquette or anything. We're all sitting there and it's so miserably awkward, quiet because his family's weird, his dad's weird, like everybody's just, it's this weird, awful tension. So I'm like, I can't handle this anymore. So I just start talking, making fun of shit, and then riffing, and I just want to keep talking. So
just fill the void.
Just to get that awful tension off of me. Like that silence, it felt like it weighed 1,000,000 pounds. And I was like, as long as I'm controlling the situation and I'm jabbering on, like I don't have to let it get weird again.
Yeah.
And I remember whenever I take I look up and I see the table and I see all these faces looking at me and they're all laughing.
Yeah.
And they're waiting on every word. They're on every single breath. I'm like, holy shit, this is weird. I'm like, I got something here. I'm like, I've got control over these motherfuckers. Like,
look at me, bitches.
Yeah. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. I just did it because I didn't want it to be awkward anymore. And I still do that whenever it's an awkward silence.
Yeah.
And that's, anytime I'm in a situation where it's like a work trip or I'm just, even in college or what, you'd be in these situations where it's just awkward. And like I couldn't handle it, car trip. So I just start fucking talking and just going off the top of my head, being stupid. And it would get people to laugh. And then, that's sometimes they'd be like, hey, you should do stand-up comedy. I'm like, no, I just do this because...
I just do this because I'm scared.
Yeah, I just do this because I don't do good with interactions with people.
Two things. First of all, growing up on a farm, away, not in a town, it was, I was a half hour from everyone. I was going to the wrong school. I was supposed to be in another district and all that stuff. So I didn't have any neighbors or friends that would come to spend the night. And I remember I'm such a fucking loser for this. I still cringe thinking about this, but the very first time I was going to have friends over, it was going to be 2, same night. We're going to have friends stay over. And all I had ever seen as far as like a sleepover or whatever, bro night or whatever, was the shit you saw on TV. And I'm so nervous about this sleepover because all I've ever seen is these kids who have these, like on Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, who have these super dope rooms and all these
parents that love each other.
And all these cool games and stuff.
Food in the refrigerator. And they don't have to be like, hey, can we watch TV? Hang on, let me pretend to call my dad. Cable's out again? I mean, you're going to have to call them, Dad, and get them to fix it. I'm telling you, you need to see if you can get a credit on the bill or something. This is just, tell them we're going to switch to Dish.
And it was like, just like, I'm sure, I don't have to guess, I know, growing up, your home was always in a state of repair. That never got repaired. So I'm sitting here thinking about the floor in my bedroom and how all the tiles pilling up on it. It's like pill and stick tile. And I'm like, that's just subfloor. And I've got these 2 buddies coming over and I got so nervous and so scared that it wasn't going to go like it's supposed to on Nickelodeon. I didn't know what like a real one was like. I'd never been to one. I was having them over for my first experience. And it was, shout out Brad and Chase. They are in the car. My mom picks them up, then comes to pick me up from my grandma's because that's who babysat me during the summer and all that. She comes to pick me up, and I won't go home. I stayed the night at my grandma's while 2 friends went and spent the night at my house.
What?
Yeah, I was like, I can't do it, and I was just like, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. And my mom's like, you have friends coming over. I'm like, just take them home. I'm not going. And my mom was super cool about it. She was like, why? And I was like, I just want to stay here tonight. I love Nana. And we had this whole Lion King and popcorn thing planned out. And I'd really hate to disappoint her. So I'm just going to chill here. And I was super young. I was like 6. But I remember that. And I'm like, why would I do that?
That's so weird.
So fucking
like,
weird.
hey, boys, why don't you just sleep in this person's room who's not here?
Yeah, she took them home. They played my Nintendo 64 on my super shitty TV on my subfloor floor with like a broke down piece of shit hand-me-down bed and had a time of their life apparently because they came back. So we stayed friends. It wasn't super weird for them for whatever reason. They're like, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah.
It was weird because my house was centrally located because we grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
And then financial things kind of made that impossible.
Right. Yeah.
The bank said you can't live here anymore. And
they took it. Got it. Yeah.
That's fair. You're right on. Yeah. You need to make your payments. Right on. And then, so we got this house, but it was like real small, shitty house, but it was in town. And it was central to everything. So everybody wanted to come over to our house.
Yeah.
And I got tired of making excuses. It's like, why don't you have cable this month? Where does your little brother sleep? Like, basic questions that I didn't have answers for.
I remember the first time that I came over there, and I know there's 3 of you brothers, and I'm
and
like,
our parents.
yeah.
So that would
So it's
require 4 bedrooms.
Right. It was not 4 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms.
And it was probably my second or third time coming over before I was like, wait a minute, we're short a bed here. There should be a bunk bed or something to explain this. And it was like, hey, where does your brother's name Zach? I was like, where does Zach sleep? And you're like, oh, the couch. I'm like, why? And he's like, he loves it.
That was the thing. It was supposed to
where
be
the big
like
TV is.
It was supposed to be like a bunk bed situation. But my mom's also like addicted to buying useless fucking antiques. And she's like, but I've got these beds that are miserable. You're going to hate them. Trust me. So I'm going to get them in here. And then she just didn't want a bunk bed because they look tacky. And I was like, well, what are we going to do with him? We're going to get him a couch bed, a day bed. And he's like, he says he likes it. So because he never complained because he was like fucking 8 or whatever the hell, he just like slept on a couch for a while.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, but but people always wanted to come over to my house. I'm like, could you not though? Yeah. Like, cause like the cable would be out that week, and I'd literally have to make phone calls, like pretend phone calls to my dad, or sometimes real phone calls. I'm like, Dad, yeah, something's wrong with the cable. And he goes, yeah, they cut it off. Does that when you don't pay your bill? And I'm like, well, but I couldn't let them know that. I'm like, well, man, tell them we're gonna switch to dish, or I'd always be pulling some bullshit like that when people came over.
Well, you call them and tell them right now we're about done with their ass.
Trav, why is there no food in your fridge? I'm like, power went out the other day. It was weird, so we had to throw away all the food. We had all this food. And
we had just went grocery shopping and spent a ton of money on it, and we just had to throw it all out.
And then it was the same thing. They'd start asking questions, and I'd be like, oh, check this out. Ha-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Check out put on my dancing shoes, and let's just skate around this topic.
I did it as a defense mechanism, too.
Hey, man, you want to go stand out in the yard and just look at nothing? Come on, it's way better than here. Travis, it's cold and raining. Yeah, let's go look. Let's make a game of it.
We got a pretty sweet stick out there. Been poking this dead squirrel with it for a while now.
Oh, man. And then you
had that building out there.
Full of antiques.
Yeah, the one we hid beer in, and
you had relations in.
Banged a chick in that one time. Yeah. That building's, I hope they don't ever tear it down. There's too many memories in that thing. Oh my God, the shit we got into out there. Anyway, the comedy thing. I did it as a defense mechanism too at like holidays and stuff because, split parents because of course. And my mom's side
Christmases.
Yeah, it's not really how that plays out. It's like one good Christmas and then a whole bunch of awkward conversations. So as anybody with divorced parents knows, it's like a split. You've got your normal side of the family, the one that you're with 24/7, the one who, that's where you come home from school. That's where your hobbies and your interests and your life is. And then, especially on holidays, you got to go to this foreign, crazy other side of the family that you're not used to at all because they do things different and their toilet paper's weird. And like there's a whole list of shit. It's like, yeah, I don't like your couch because it doesn't have that little corner that I get to sleep in when I'm at my house, and I don't like that your snacks are weird. Why do you not buy name brand Pop-Tarts? Like, sure, yeah, we don't have name brand anything, but the Pop-Tarts, you don't fucking skimp on the Pop-Tarts, Dad. Anyway, it was always this super awkward foreign, like, other planet that you were on, and the toys suck, and the cousins suck. So me and one of my good cousins would just hold court.
My good cousins?
Yeah. My only good cousin, we would just go back and forth trying to make people laugh. And just because there was nothing else to do. It wasn't a defense mechanism like I wanted to get the attention off of other stuff. It was just that I was so bored and felt like I was in such a foreign place. I was like, well, the one thing I can do is make all these people look at me and laugh.
Yeah, and when you're a kid too, like you'd always get kid tabled or some bullshit, and like the adults are so busy, like fucking talking to each other and having these gossipy conversations that you don't understand and you're not privy to. So then you do something silly, makes people laugh, then all of a sudden all eyes are on you because kids are hilarious. I hate kids, but when they say some shit they're not supposed to, it's hilarious. Like it's no getting around it, because they've got all that innocence and whatnot. And you're like, whoa, this is another superpower. It's like I can get attention. You might not listen to me when I'm speaking, but if I'm being silly, now you're paying attention.
Now you're looking at me. And that was probably the one of the few times that I liked the attention. I wasn't a huge attention seeker kid, but I remember at my grandma's house, because split grandparents as well. That's why I said my grandma's house, not my grandparents' house. My grandma's house, and by house I mean income apartment. had 2 stories, and the kids would go upstairs and play, and everybody would sit down in the living room and talk. And after a couple years of doing that with all the adults down in the living room, I would come down the stairs and everyone would stop talking and look at me. All the other grandkids could just walk into the kitchen and get a drink or whatever, but I would come down and everyone would stop like, what's he got for us? That was the first time I remember being expected to perform.
Oh, yeah.
And, by perform, it was tell Jeff Foxworthy jokes or do a terrible impression of something or something that I should definitely have been canceled for. I used to do a midget impression.
Oh, you remember in like Scary Movie? Did you ever watch that? Scary Movie. It was
not the real Scary Movie.
No, it's a parody with the Wayans brothers. Yeah. There's a scene where he's like, "Does this shirt make me look gay?"
and he tucks it
like that. My parents used to make me do that shit. And we had these real religious people who weren't related to us, but everybody's related to you. Older people are just mama.
Yeah.
And then like cousin, even if you're not cousins, uncles, even if they're not. I don't know fucking what the dynamic is, but white trash people just want to be family. So
oh yeah, and it's either aunt or mama, whatever.
So that's the first time I've ever bombed. I remember doing that. And it fucking killed everybody because it's a kid saying, "Does this shirt make me look gay?" No, how about now? And then you tuck it and you're a little kid walking around. I did it for these Pentecostal skirt wearing bun like fuck people, and they sit there and I do it. Crickets, and I'm like, oh, I must not be doing it good enough. So then I pranced around and I was like, "Hi,
let's go in deeper."
Little Z snap, and I knew that at like 8 or 9 years old. I was like, that's what it is.
Yep.
Nothing, and I remember like, well, this is uncomfortable. I don't like the Starlings anymore. Fuck them.
Go back to church, you old bitch.
So your kid's fucking weird. Stands in the clothing rack at Walmart whenever he's supposed to be working. Josh. Why are you named after a bird, you fucking weirdos? Starling's not a last name. It's an invasive species. Send it back. Kill them all. Anyways, I'm sure we could talk about our childhoods forever, but we're not sponsored by BetterHelp. So, all right. So one of the things we like to do on this podcast is we like to try to demystify stand-up comedy. Because when you see professional comedians who are just killing it, you think, man, what they're doing is amazing. It's just magic. I don't even know how they come up with it. But since we've started doing it, and once again, trust me, we know we're ass, we're terrible. We've only done this a couple months, but even in doing that, talking with other comedians and actually trying to write jokes, you start to realize, oh, there's a method to this madness. There's a structure. There's tips and tricks and things that they're doing. So we're going to watch, what is it, Dave Chappelle?
Yeah, this one is Dave Chappelle, one of his big bits, The Baby in the Ghetto. You can look it up on YouTube. It's actually Dave Chappelle, Baby on the Corner.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do...
There'll be a link in the description.
Yeah, we'll link the video in the description. If you're listening to the podcast only, you'll be able to hear the entire bit, and then we're going to go back, rewatch it, and break it down.
Doing this whole breakdown, it's not like we're trying to tear down his bit and show exactly how it was written or any of that. So we're not jaded enough to think that we're good enough to do something like that.
Yeah, this is just...
Dave's a genius. All we're trying to do is get better at writing ourselves by breaking down and trying to figure out what his mindset was on some things and figure out what can make our jokes better. That's all we're doing. We're not trying to...
Yeah, these are our favorite bits, so we're going to watch them, and we're showing you what we see from our perspective at 2 months in, and as this podcast progresses and as we hopefully get better, maybe we'll start to pick up on some other tips and tricks and things as we go on.
This is basically through the eyes of...
novices.
Someone who's just starting out, because that's what we're doing. So someone who's never done stand-up probably has just as much insight as we do, minus maybe a little bit, because we have been writing jokes, and that gives you a whole new perspective.
Yes, if you're thinking about starting stand-up, you're going to be able to see what people who are basically your peers think about jokes after you're a couple months in.
Yeah. All right. So Dave Chappelle, Baby on the Corner.
Okay, so when you look at your types of comedy, you got like your Mitch Hedberg one-liner, you got people who do their basic setup, punchline, premise, and then they tag it, act out, whatever. And Dave, he does it all. But this is clearly like a story.
Yeah.
So I know we just did Ron White, Tater Salad. This is another story. Yeah. I couldn't remember this bit because it's so old. And it's been so long since I listened to it. And I'm like, okay, this is just clearly a story. And it's hard to like break down a story.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, you don't know where the setup's coming.
Yeah.
It's like, this is an interesting story, and he's just really good at telling it, and he puts the laughs in there.
Yeah. I think the most important thing about this is keeping it relatable on a story, any story, but especially one like this, keeping it relatable and keeping the audience tied into him.
And a thing I've noticed that you want to do in comedy is you don't like really want to do a lot of past tense. You want to make everything in the present.
Yeah.
Like even if you're talking about being in 8th grade, you're like, so there I was in 8th grade, and I was like, because you want to keep it in the present tense because it seems more relatable and therefore people laugh. What he does a really good job of in this story is he puts you in his shoes. Like you feel like, oh, okay, he's describing it so well you know what he's going through.
And we talk a lot about, I'm going to go ahead and get it going, but we talk a lot about cutting the fat on a story. Like when we're doing a story on stage or whatever, it's don't tell the parts that aren't important. He's got more fat here than I thought.
But is it needed? Because it's like it sets up.
But he sets that scene. So I think this is one of those stories that you have to have the scene set.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, there's some rough areas outside of D.C. Yeah, everybody should go to the ghetto. I was taken to the ghetto one time. That's the worst. When you get taken and you're not expecting to go. You know, usually you want to know when you go in the ghetto, like, I'm going to see some wild shit. I got to prepare myself. I'm going to see something crazy.
The ghetto is no different than like a trailer park for us, I don't think.
No. Yeah, it's just like a slum. Like, just low income,
the
low
income
education.
area. Because everything he says in this is relatable on a white trash level as well. So.
When you're taken, it's different. I had a limousine driver. It was after a show. It was late at night. It was like 3 in the morning. I had a limousine driver. He was a nice guy talking to me and shit. Oh, hey, where you from, dog? D.C.? Word? That's a rough city, man.
You know what that limo driver looks like.
Yeah,
just from
by the way he's doing it.
And the way he's acting and driving.
Yeah, normally like you'll see people do an act out, like they'll tell you what the punchline is and then they'll act that out. Like, you know, she was like blah, and like, oh, could you imagine if a babysitter did this? And then they act that out. He's just telling you the story and he's being that character, so it helps you like get into it. And then like he's not really saying anything that's funny, but because he's doing a funny voice and he's like,
so far up to this point, the only joke has been you don't want to get taken to the, which isn't even really like a super deep joke, but everyone has an experience like that. Yeah. Everyone has an experience where you got put in a situation where you weren't expecting it. And so he's got the relatability thing going already.
And his cell phone started ringing. Hold on 1 second. Hello? Oh, what's up, nigga? What the fuck? Slow down. What the fuck? No! Fuck that, nigga. Fuck it. I'm on my way.
So he's getting a good laugh here, and there's like that wasn't even a joke. He just took his because he did so good with the act out. He took his character, who was how soft spoken like this man, to no.
Yeah, I think a lot of that laugh comes from. I've been in that situation before. Usually the voice isn't, hey man, it's like, hey, I tell you what, like I've been to that, like where you're driving with some guy and he's like, no, fuck that bitch, no man, no, and then he literally same situation, I got to make a stop, and you're like, oh shit, this is not what I want to be a part of right now. So I think that act out right there is funny just because people relate to it as well. I mean, the voice is funny in going from soft spoken to loud, but I think a lot of it has to do with people have been put in a situation where they know what's about to go down regardless. They know he already set up that we're going to the ghetto.
You're going to be taken to the ghetto. And you're being taken because this dude's having.
And now he's telling you how he got here. So everyone just realized this limo driver is the guy taking him to the ghetto. So it's starting to come together.
Yeah. So he's getting claps though.
Hey. I gotta make a stop real quick. At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Did you notice this is like deep breakdown stuff, but did you notice that while everyone was still cheering, he went on with the joke? He stepped on the cheer to get to a laugh.
Yeah, because I think he knew, he's like, I don't want you clapping for me, I want you laughing. Because this is something we talk about a lot, is like clapping, like these applause breaks. Clapping is voluntary. Yeah, it's voluntary. It's like you have to actively decide to put your hands together, but laughing's involuntary. Someone makes you laugh.
Yeah. But he was getting that cheer from the acting out and the guy going crazy, and right in the middle of them still cheering for him, he shuts it down and brings a laugh out by saying, we got to make a stop real quick.
I don't think he would step on a laugh, but I think he would step on a cheer because he's like, all right, let's get this back to what it's supposed to be.
And I didn't know he was taking me to the ghetto at first. I started looking out the window. I was like, what the fuck? Is gun store, liquor store, gun store? Where the fuck are you taking me?
To where we grew up.
This don't look good.
But see, that's just funny because it's like, you know, he's painting the picture. Like, this is probably before people started making, like, talking about what a ghetto looks like.
Yeah.
It's like you see like cash for check places, liquor stores, gun
Yep.
stores. So
Just pulled up in front of an old rickety building that looked like a project. Now, I'd never been there before. I'm not sure if it was a project, but it certainly had all the familiar symptoms of a project.
that's
I
just
think
good.
that's I think that's the first joke.
Yeah.
Like up to this point, he's just been a really good storyteller, really good at acting out, bringing the story back around, letting you know what's going on. Realization moments where the audience is like, "Oh, now I know what's going on." That's the first time he's did a joke, and it's a fucking great joke.
Yeah.
The project symptoms.
Yeah. So he's like, and then he said a funny word, and it was like something you didn't expect. And now here typically comes the point where after he makes his point, had all the familiar symptoms of the project is when he should do an act out of what he just stated.
Yeah.
It had all
Or tag it up.
yeah, it's like, well, okay, he said it has all the symptoms of a project. So like, what are the symptoms? And
Yeah.
that's what he should go into. He does.
A fucking crackhead ran this way. And then another one jumped out a tree and shit. And I said, I'll be right back. And left me. Took the keys with him and just left me. At 3 o'clock in the morning, in front of a project, in a fucking limousine.
At that point, I think first time I heard this bit, I know, even rewatching it again, at that point right there, I forgot he was in a limo. Like that, I think that's why he tagged.
Yeah.
That like brings it back. It's
And
like,
it's important too, because it's like, that's not the car you want to be in.
right, yeah. Now you know this person sitting in here has money. He doesn't have to go in and say that though. I like that. He doesn't say that means I have money and now people are probably going to try to rob me. He's just like, that's a bad situation. Everybody knows what's going on. Giving the audience credit to figure something out.
This was not good. I was like, man, I gotta look around and see if I can see some landmarks and figure out where I'm at. Might have to escape on foot.
And see, that's
Now, this
just
is when
something
I know
that
I
I
was in
think
a
good
bad-
comedians do too. Is like, instead, I might have to run. I might have to flee. He said, escape on foot.
Yeah.
It's just stating the obvious in an unconventional way. Sometimes that's all you need to get
Yeah.
people to laugh.
Escape on foot.
Yeah. Like
instead
the
of,
same thing with symptoms
I
of a
might have
project.
to run.
Yeah. It might not have been a project, but it felt like a project. He said it might not have been a project, but it had all the familiar symptoms of a project.
Yeah.
He just said it in a way that most people don't speak.
Which is just part of telling the story.
Mhm.
Like
You're adding color to it.
it's just making it a funnier way to say it.
But you only see this in the worst neighborhoods. Remember, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I look out the window. It was a fucking baby standing on a corner.
That pause right there is everything.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you only see this in the worst neighborhoods. Like he's building the suspense.
Yeah, and if he just went straight into it, I don't think he would have got the
Yeah,
same
if he'd
pop.
been like, yeah, I looked out and there was a fucking baby on the corner. That
It's like
wouldn't have got,
tension release. So
Yeah.
he's like, yeah. You got a much bigger pop because he paused.
it makes seeing a baby on the corner more absurd.
Yeah.
Because he paused for it.
Look at this. And the baby didn't even look scared. He was just standing there.
And that's just funny because he's like looking funny.
Yeah. That's a real baby-esque head he's doing that there
I
too.
mean, it made me sad. It made me sad, really. You know, because I wanted to help the baby.
So for like 30 seconds right there, he had him rolling.
Yeah.
Like once he got the laugh,
Because he's got to the point of the story. Like
Yeah.
this is pretty much the end of the story. And now they're just waiting for the final payoff.
he got him rolling, and then while they're still laughing, he kept the roll going by hitting him with another one. And the timing right there is everything.
Yep.
I think that's what Dave Chappelle, obviously everyone credits Dave Chappelle as a genius, but I think that's one of the things he doesn't get enough credit for is his timing.
He can read the room like a freaking book.
He knows when to step on it and when to not. Like he stepped on a little bit of the laughter to get a harder laugh. And then right here, this blows my mind. He just kills it by saying, man, it was sad. Like everybody's laughing and he brings them back down like, oh shit, there is a baby.
Because he needs that tension again so he can break it. Because
Yeah.
he's not doing setup and punchline. He's like
he could
tension release.
leave that part out right there and just keep rolling. But the fact that he brings it back down and then ramps it back up again, that's fucking, he's a genius.
Wait. Well, I don't trust you either. I'm sorry. Click.
Right back in.
The old baby on the corner trick, eh? Not gonna fall for that shit. Where's this limousine driver? You know, I start feeling bad. As time goes by, I start feeling worse. Like, man, what is wrong with me? What the hell's wrong? I'm scared of a baby. And this baby could be in trouble. He might need my help. I got to do something. But I wasn't going to get out the car. I'm serious, man. I just cracked the window a little bit.
This is good.
There's an old limousine. I can roll it down.
Even at the time this was put out.
It's an old limousine.
Yeah. Even at the time this was put out, he's doing like a window crank motion for anybody who's not watching it. He's doing the crank a window motion, and he realized it's almost like he realizes halfway through miming that out that he's like, this is kind of an old thing to do. So
And he's like, yeah, and then like in a limo, like limo should have fucking electric windows.
So he just stops, breaks character for a second. I like that fourth wall break where they stop and talk back to the audience. And
in a story, yeah.
Yeah, this was
typically like they'd be talking to the audience, but in a story, it's like he's telling it and he stops telling a story to touch on something that we're all aware of and bringing the audience in like, hey, you know, you're in on the joke. You caught that, and I'm aware that you caught that.
Yeah. It's like almost like a Jim from The Office thing where he looks at the camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, I know that I'm weaving this web of this crazy story, but also we both know that we're still here doing this joke. He gets a good laugh out of that too.
Hey, baby.
He let it completely down.
He had to. He had to, so that you set the scene of it being a silent night. Because if he did it over the laughter, like the tension had to be built right there.
Mm-hmm. Baby, go home, man. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. What the fuck are you doing up?
Let's
The baby
die
said, I'm
again.
selling weed, nigga. I said, oh,
I think having the baby talk at the end right there is important because it lets him, like, it's a sad situation. It's a scary situation to have a literal baby on the corner. So I think there's always that like redeemer that has to happen at some point.
Here's what I think about
that lets everybody off the hook.
Story jokes too. You'll never get a story joke with a great ending. The ending is never as fun as the joke.
No.
Like the story is what's fun.
Yeah.
Like Bert Kreischer's The Machine, Tater Salad we just watched. He just told a story. Like that ending's funny, but the whole story is what's the joke. Like, because typically a story, it's like you got to wait till the very end to get the payoff. It's beginning, middle. We're waiting to see what happens at the end of the story.
That's the closest to the end you get a payoff, though.
Yeah.
Because it's...
The baby's, you know, it's a joke.
Yeah,
but that's still not as funny.
Selling weed.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you're right. Like in Ron's Tater Salad, the payoff is they call me Tater Salad. But then he has to tell the whole rest of the story. Because you can't leave on that. Because everybody's like, well, wait, what happened? So, like, this one... I mean,
well,
you're
like
still
The
wondering.
Machine's a great example because you're just listening to this fucking story of like all this insanity that went on.
Yeah, there's no big payoff in that story.
No,
really.
like there can't be because it's like you've built and built and built and built, and the point of a payoff is like, you know, it's a resolution. You get a nice, everything's tied up in a bow, and I'm like, but you had this big, huge, crazy story, so it's also real though. Like if it was a fake story, he could write some fantastical ending where people are like, wow, that was good.
Yeah.
But because it's a real story, he's got to put a bow on it.
Yeah.
And like with Dave, obviously that's not real. The baby didn't say I'm selling weed.
Right, but I think that's the redeemer, and it's also the let off the hook. Like, we're done with this story now.
And you get something that you want.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
so Dave,
That's the breakdown
obviously
on-
phenomenal comedian. Handled stories very different than Ron, but like they used a lot of the same techniques of like tension, release. That's what I notice in stories is like they got to build you up to something, and then when you're laughing, they got to take you back down to square one because they got to get you back up there again.
All of the best storytellers are really good at building that tension.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that I'm having the biggest trouble with right now, and I know you do too because I watch you. It's hard to just sit in silence for a second. And it's so important to build tension in some of these stories. Like Ron is the master of that.
Yeah.
No one does it better than him to just sit there with nothing going on.
If I'm telling a story and I'm not getting a laugh, because like you're used to like if you're doing a 5 on an open mic, you're trying to get a laugh every 10 to 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And in a story, sometimes you can't because you're giving details.
Yeah.
You're doing exposition. You're talking about what's going on, setting the stage. So if you're not getting a laugh, sometimes you'll get nervous. For me, anyways, and a lot of other
me
people
too. Yeah.
You'll start talking really fast to try to get to a funny part.
Yeah, you know there's a laugh coming, and it's been a while since I got a laugh, so let me speed up so I can get there, as opposed to just letting it fester and letting it just like sit there in that weird tension, nervous situation that the true greats are always good at. They're always fine just letting it marinate for a while.
Exactly.
Something we got to get better at.
All right, so what did you guys think? That was the breakdown. Let us know if you agree with us, disagree with us, if we're totally full of shit, whatever. Let us know in the comments down below. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you aren't already. And other than that, we will catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Thanks for watching.